Hello. It's Wednesday. It's band book club. It's another day, another stream in fascist America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. My name's Aubri Devashrayee. Today we're going to continue with where we left off yesterday. We were talking about Indigenous resistance, specifically the Lakota people, and what their resistance has looked like historically. I also want to touch on how a lot of these policies that are happening now in this current regime, how there are many policies negatively impacting Indigenous people, especially as we're talking about birthright citizenship, how it disproportionately and historically has been used to strip citizenship away from Indigenous people and Black people. So we'll talk about that, talk a little bit about the Red Power movement, how that started, or I guess not how it started, but how it was incorporated with the protest of Alcatraz, of building Alcatraz. We'll talk about the importance of sharing knowledge. I also mentioned watching this video that is an interview with Leonard Peltier, who was a political prisoner for a very long time, who was recently released. So we'll look at that. And then we'll get into Band Book Club. It's the final week of The Giver. And with it being the final week of The Giver, I will finally read the interview questions that I sent to Lois Lowry because she responded, and I'm very excited to share them with you because I'm a nerd and I really love her art and have looked up to her wisdom for a very long time. So we'll go over that. It's me just reading off the questions and her responses because she doesn't do video interviews anymore, according to her response. But, I mean, I'll take what I can get. And then we'll also need to discuss what we're reading next, because the poll that I put up on YouTube, there is a tie between The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison in 1984 by George Orwell. So we will hopefully decide on an option. And then, per usual, get into the Scarlet Pimpernel, that aristocratic propaganda used to engender sympathy for the ruling class, advocating for working class betrayal, and having sympathy for ruling class initiatives rather than liberation and revolution. So, okay, I'm getting started a little bit later today. There's some things I need to take care of, but once again, I will be going through things at a higher speed with the videos, just so that we can get to the things that I've planned. So let's finish. Normally I start with a funny video, which maybe there's... Maybe there is something that I can show. Maybe not a full video, just in the interest of time so we can get to things. Okay. I'll show you a post by The Onion, just so that we can keep moving along. This is a post that I saw today. Supreme Court overturns right versus wrong. It's funny because it is tragically true that this Supreme Court is completely compromised. We know that Peter Thiel has accomplished his mission of having a supermajority of fascist sympathizers that he is actively funded and has a corrupt relationship with, that he was able to place these judges, these justices there because of the Heritage Foundation. Once again, coming back to that evil entity that he has run to just dismantle American democracy because he thinks American democracy, or just democracy in general, is not compatible with existence, which he just means his own existence and goals, because he's so rich and callous that he has nothing better to do besides destroy the world. So there's that. I thought that was funny. What's this one? Ice machine reaches deep within itself to give man one more cube. Like where you have to wait forever. It just like spins and spins. You're like, okay, I'll take it. Okay, so let's finish this video. The great-grandson of Bull that is sitting, and the reason I am correcting that is because in this video that we are watching, he said that saying sitting bull is a misinterpretation of what the Lakota translation actually is. It's a bull in the act of sitting, not a bull that is actively sitting. So just wanting to be a little more precise with language and true to the Lakota language as well. This is Ernie Lapointe, and he is answering questions from the audience. Already we can see there is a majority white audience, so the questions and reactions that they have are not as culturally sensitive. He is providing a lot of really great information and is trying to respond in a way that is advocating for not centering whiteness and a colonizer perspective, where people are constantly asking, like, how do you preserve this? How do you preserve that? And he's like, I just am trying to live life. Like, that's how we preserve things, is by being ourselves and, you know, like practicing our traditions. So let's finish this and then get into the other stuff.
Are you preserving your identity and traditions, or are you assimilating?
Oops.
Well, I'm preserving my culture. That's what I'm doing. And again, within the Native communities, there's some that'll fight me over religion, you know, because they're assimilated into Christianity. And they called what my ceremonies, the song I did is.
Okay.
Well, I'm preserving my culture. That's what I'm doing. And again, within the Native communities, there's some that'll fight me over religion, you know, because they're assimilated into Christianity. And they
Colonized
called
minds.
what my ceremonies, the song I did, is a pagan religion or something, you know. But it doesn't. I don't let it bring me down, because I still believe in my culture, and I live my culture. So this is, you know, we can coincide with each other if they will accept and understand who I am, because I understand who they are. You know what I mean? Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask you whether, I'm aware of the use of the Navajo language. I think it was in the South Pacific that the Japanese didn't understand. It was important in World War II. I don't really want to speak to that, but could you speak to other aspects of your culture that have been beneficial in regards to the military?
Well, I think in the European theater, they used Lakota language, Comanche, as code talkers, just like the Navajos. But the Navajos are more recognized, you know.
Yeah. Do you see how this person, a very boomer-esque white question that's like, how has culture made a contribution to European, like, Eurocentric society? That's like
There's a code talker.
the dumb question.
The last one, I think, just passed away last year. The last living Lakota code talker, his name was Clarence Wolfguts. He was from Pine Ridge, but he always talked he always spoke Lakota, and he said they had, just like the Navajos, the symbols, you know, that identify what they're saying. You know, they identify a turtle is a tank or something, you know, or you know, things like this. You know, in Lakota language, you're talking to each other. And he said if we went a little bit longer, he said the Germans probably would have figured out, you know, what we're saying because their language is really close to ours. You know. Yes, sir.
Have you received any messages or impressions from your grandfather regarding the auction that's coming up on the 25th in the Black Hills?
No, I haven't. That is left up to the consciousness of the people, you know, who's doing this. You know, and it's really an uphill struggle, like I say, because most people don't understand what we hold sacred. You know, and all land is sacred. The whole earth is sacred
Clearly.
to us as Lakota people,
Clearly.
not just areas, the whole area. And what you do to it, you're going to have to face the consequences in the future. And this is what Sitting Bull Family Foundation has a part called environment. We want to teach, we want to share with the people how we live with the environment. We didn't destroy it. We had to walk in balance with it. Yes.
Yeah, isn't that part of the whole spirituality of Native American Indians is that they came from the earth and honor the earth, and with the buffalo, you use every part of the buffalo, and you were green before, you know, you ever started thinking about green, and that the land that we still walk upon is earth, and that we give honor to the sun and every living thing. That should not be just a Native American.
I have no idea what this person's saying.
Personally, everybody's living, so we can learn so much from who we are, the area we breathe, your culture, and your spirituality that has started all this.
Something that drives me nuts. This happens especially to people of color when they are in spaces that are predominantly white, very colonized, is that people just want to wax poetic about their own viewpoints rather than listening or actually asking good faith questions. They want to just like state their opinions, and that's not only is that like impolite, it is a microaggression, sometimes macroaggression.
I think this all needs to come back to the roots of the earth, what provides for us. It needs to be-
Right. That's the Environment and Sitting Bull Family Foundation. That's what we're doing. And we're trying to, again, it's a big fight between the guys who have these pieces of paper with a bunch of dead presidents. And
Hello,
Franklin on there, and
Tan.
their
Welcome.
idea
How are
is more
you?
powerful than
What are some
the aspect
examples of
spirituality.
wax something you just said? Something?
Yes.
Oh, waxing poetic. Of when people, it's just like a phrase to say that like people go on and are kind of self-indulgent rather than getting to the point. I think this just happens a lot. It happens a lot with presenters who are people of color, but just marginalized people in general, where you have people who are using the opportunity to state opinions rather than asking good faith questions with genuine curiosity and respect. So, yeah. Like yapping or lost. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, good to see you too.
When did you join?
Well, I joined the Army in 1966, and I did re-enlist, volunteer to go to Vietnam. I had to find out, you know, what I was walking around carrying this gun for, you know. I mean, and it was a learning experience for me, you know. So I could use it, I guess, now as a tool to understand.
And people of
to share
color
with people
were put
about
on the front
what
lines
war
in
is.
Vietnam as well.
And I realized that there's got to be a valid, different answer to war. There's got to be a way to settle disagreements, issues without a gun and war. You know, I mean, in the old days,
And it's not
you know,
even a
my wife laughs at me.
disagreement.
You got two guys that
What happened
don't
in
like each other
Vietnam.
'cause they're fighting
It
over
was
a woman,
just-
and then the war starts. You know,
Outright imperialist aggression.
it's never two women fighting over a guy. It's always two guys fighting over a woman.
Ooh, you have a watch
do it.
streak. Thank you, Tan.
one last question.
You're the
No.
best.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. I kind of wish that I had skipped that last part because people were asking dumbass questions, but I hadn't seen the video before, so. Please translate my YouTube streak onto Twitch. Do you have a good YouTube streak? It really is so wild how different the platforms are. Okay. Hi, Deanie. I hear her meowing. Hi. All right, we'll see if she hops up here. I wanted to watch this video. It is by the Wo Lakota channel, and they have some really great content. So, this is by Ricky Graygrass. He's talking about the Black Hills and how people can't, even though we have colonizers who are trying to dominate land and say, like, this is mine. It's like, actually, the earth doesn't belong to people. The earth is for everyone. Yeah, I'm saying the VODs are being seen on YouTube. Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, I don't really know what like boosts things on YouTube either. I probably should be better about like using keywords and stuff, but like the marketing person in me is like, what about SEO, search engine optimization? I'm like, oh, it's a lot of work to do all that. The earth belongs to the sun. True. Yeah, the earth is obsessed with the sun. Okay, approval granted on July 12th, 2017 by Crazy Horse Memorial Foundation to use the copyrighted image of the mountain carving for the Elder Interviews files, Wo Lakota Project. Crazy Horse Memorial is a public charity and cannot endorse or oppose the statements represented. Yeah, of course they're saying that. They're very interested in building this monument to Crazy Horse, and it's like, that's not what people were asking for, where the Black Hills were used for Mount Rushmore, literally defacing the mountains with the faces of colonizers and genocidal oppressors, rather than giving the land back and saying, like, sorry, that's what we should do. They were like, oh, we're gonna build a huge monument to Crazy Horse. It's like, that's not the answer. Just make a thumbnail the way Mr. Beast does. I know. I'm so bad at that as well. Easy money. I know. I mean, he has like a good technique. I will admit that. That I think I could be co-opting more. But yeah. Also, fuck Mr. Beast. Yeah, agreed. There's part of me that's like, I don't like giving into the like patterns of what people are viewing as like trendy or like clickable, that there is something a little more refreshing of having things that are like stripped down more and not just being like all of the thumbnails are me being like, oh, or like, I mean, I have some like that, but I take them like from the actual videos. So I don't know if that's me just like on my high horse or if, there's something that I could be doing that's like, well, you could be helping yourself out with these techniques. More authentic and organic. Yeah, I mean, that's my my approach. I'm like hoping to bring more of like the real world, like something grounded to the digital space. I don't know if I'm succeeding, but that also is potentially like a pretentious approach. I have been known to be pretentious from time to time. I will admit that. Also, hello, welcome.
But I like coming back here to the Black Hills. This is where I find my serenity at. A peace. Because I could come back and pray to my land. And like I stated earlier, this land is still ours, regardless of what the government is putting the amounts of billions of dollars in front of the Sioux Nation. This land is still ours, and so every time I come up and to pray here or at Black Elks Peak or at Preshla, I feel good because I know my ancestors at the time were there on that same ground I was praying at. So, today
I thought Juniper was in there, but she's not. Try to be the same way. I'm not trying to pretend to be anything else. Yeah, I think that's needed, especially when we live in a world that is just dominated by algorithms and capitalists, billionaires, Eurocentric aesthetics, imperialist norms, that it's good to just be like, yeah, I'm me. Like, that is a form of resistance, I think, of like, I'm not conforming to things. But I also have been known to be, what is the word that I'm looking for? I'll figure it out. Like, the term that keeps coming to mind is counterculture, but that's not what I'm looking for. Yeah, that I just am inherently like against what is mainstream, which also can be very pretentious. But I'm like, it's so boring to be like everyone else. Like, who wants to do that? And this like element of sameness is like a tool that I think the ruling class uses to control us. So there's that.
it was a good day, being first day of spring and to do that ceremony and to pray to the ancestors and welcoming back the Thunder Beings. Those were passed on to me from my dad and my mom and my uncles, how to do that. So I'm really grateful, that I got a good, my brothers here, my nephews, my nieces, my girlfriend and my son, that made the journey here. So
I love that.
I'm really grateful for that and for Crazy Horse Monument, for letting me do that, for giving me the time to go on top of the sculpture and do that prayer.
But the monument should not have to let people go there. Like, people should just be able to be there on sacred land that their ancestors have been a part of. It's easy to be cynical towards people that choose to be mainstream. That is true. That is true. There's just like this element of like this very human impulse to want to belong. And so I think that often is weaponized, like for sure by white supremacists, where like one of the biggest appeals to people who start down the right-wing pipeline is that they feel like there's a sense of community, like co-opting these like pro-social community building aspects and turning them into very harmful movements. Gotta groom the cats. Oh, tell them I say hi. They're so cute. I hate the government when they war on natives. Yeah. And just hate the government. I've always liked to know about my Indian people, but even though I'm Indian African myself, it is good to know my people. I love this comment. A lot of people who, like, Black people and Native people get invisibilized in history, especially when it is a narrative told by oppressors, but also how Indian African people, Black Indians, get invisibilized quite a lot in history. Conformity for the sake of community. Yeah. It's like, you know, like how we grew up Mormon, that is one of the biggest weapons that they have. It's like, oh, I don't want to leave because I have this community. Like I have people, like a network of support. And it's like, is it supportive though? Like what are the trade-offs? And is it genuine or does it come with a price? All right, so this is by DW News. This was 9 months ago. A History of Conflict, Trump's Impact on Native American Communities. So already saying the term like Native American communities, anytime you add like communities at the end, that usually is from more of like a colonizer perspective. Because if you are part of these groups, a lot of the time you don't necessarily say communities. That is an oppressor type of approach. But I am interested to hear what they have to say on policies specifically. If it's egregious, we won't continue with it.
President Donald Trump's policies have hit the Native American community hard, and not many are talking about it.
The Trump administration.
Yeah, how we see there are many Native people who are being kidnapped and trafficked to these concentration camps, birthright citizenship being stripped from people. Like that is one of the major intents with trying to get rid of birthright citizenship.
President Donald Trump's policies have hit the Native American community hard, and not many are talking about it.
The Trump administration started harassing tribal people, even detaining tribal people from this continent.
Descendants of the original inhabitants of the US are now being stopped and questioned.
They were profiling us because we were Indian.
Accusations of racial profiling began to surface.
They would detain natives, they would detain Hispanic people, and they would probably detain Asian people because they just lump them all together.
But this isn't the first time Trump has targeted Native communities.
They don't look like Indians to me, sir.
We are here in rural Montana, very close to the US-Canadian border,
because you
and
decide
tucked away
who's
behind you see
Indian or
are the
not.
Bear Paw Mountains. And we have gained very rare access to one of the 7 reservations here in the state of Montana. We are here at the Chippewa Cree Nation, 4,500 tribal members here in the US who are fighting today to stay relevant.
Relevant.
We meet up with Chief Richard and our guide Alexandra. She's showing us around the reservation.
Just trying to exist.
A stretch of land
without
bigger than
being
Washington,
oppressed.
D.C., but with none of the resources. The tribe depends on agriculture, livestock, and a handful of tribal programs to keep things running. But even the basics, clean water, fresh food, are hard to come by out here.
This is our store, our only store.
So everyone is buying groceries there?
Not really groceries because they don't have a lot of options, but like, you know, snacks and stuff.
Which is why most people here have no choice but to travel off the reservation for daily supplies and for work.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border.
But since Donald Trump began his second term as president, those trips have become more dangerous. He's ordered immigration agents to ramp up arrests.
How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible.
And now even Native Americans, U.S. citizens on sovereign land, are being stopped and questioned.
My name is Callie Oldwell, and my Cree name is Kihuskwe. Wapski Kihuskwe and Sikasin. That translates to White Eagle Woman. That's my Cree name.
Language is so pretty.
This is the Tribe Student Council, Native teenagers who will soon graduate high school. Some will leave to study elsewhere or work. Across the US, new raids and checkpoints are triggering civil rights violations. For these
Yeah,
native
that's how you
youth,
know
it
it's
means
about
being caught in the crosshairs of
racial
Trump's
profiling.
immigration dragnet.
Being a native today in the United States of America, especially as an Indigenous woman, is sometimes scary. Going out alone, you can't do that.
By early 2025, more than a dozen reports started piling up. Immigration agents, ICE, were stopping and detaining Native Americans across Arizona and New Mexico.
So when that came about, our tribal chairman, he also put out a notice
Minnesota,
for all of the tribal
everywhere.
members to carry their
It's
IDs,
happening
and
everywhere.
it wasn't too soon. Like after that, there was border patrol coming onto our reservation and parking in areas. After that, me and my family, we took precautions, and I even have a passport now too. So
Other tribes we spoke to say
they're
Border Patrol agents
on
in plain
reservations.
clothes are now showing up at places like gas stations.
We're also seeing a larger influx of people moving back to reservations. A term that a lot of Native people use is urban Indians, where people who are living in cities are going back to reservations where they feel safer.
Asking questions, demanding papers. No warning, no warrant.
So who does ICE detain?
Anybody they suspect, I think they would detain natives, they would detain Hispanic people, and they would
It's
probably
almost as if it's not
detain,
actually about
Asian
immigration.
people, 'cause they just
Exactly.
lump them all together.
Exactly.
Here in the Chippewa Cree
part of a
Student Council,
historical
the
pattern
impact
of
hits home.
ethnic
Some of my family
cleansing
from down south, from the Navajo Nation, they
that Native people
get,
are
like,
not
asked a lot
unfamiliar
by
with.
by any like law enforcement saying like, do you have like proof that you're from the United States?
I felt really scared to leave because we don't have as much protection under Native Americans as we do here on the reservation. It's just sad to see that, and to be scared to go out into a world that we should call our own.
To avoid harassment or worse, detention by ICE, tribal members are advised to carry their tribal ID at all times, even though no US state requires anyone to carry ID by law. But racial profiling isn't their only concern. Many of Trump's recent policies are hitting reservations where it already hurts: healthcare, education, and federal support.
Yep.
For over 2
defunding-
centuries, hundreds of
defunding
treaties were
programs.
signed between the tribes and the US government.
Under DEI.
Agreements that promised land, healthcare, education, and support in exchange for peace and territory.
When tribes already do not have the sovereignty that they deserve and the resources that they deserve, access to their own resources on their own land.
Not one of them was broke by an Indian.
But under Trump, those treaties are being quietly dismantled.
Hello.
Agencies slashed, funding
Who has a
stripped,
pattern of
critical
breaking
programs
treaties?
left to die. Now, tribal
The
leaders are
government.
asking, why is Trump coming after Indian country again?
We're standing here at a casino, and this is where it all started. Donald Trump's problem with the Native Americans is not new. It started way back in the 90s. When he was trying to establish his own casino empire, his biggest competition were the Indian-run casinos.
By the late 80s, Trump's casino business was bleeding cash. The market was saturated and competition was brutal. But the biggest threat? Native-owned casinos. They didn't pay federal taxes, they operated under tribal sovereignty, and they were booming. Trump tried to shut them down, filing lawsuits, claiming unfair competition. He lost, so he took his fight to Congress. There, he accused tribal casinos of being tied to organized crime.
Oh my God.
He even questioned whether Native American...
It's almost as if he has a pattern of doing this shit. And he, rather than acknowledging his own fucking incompetence and corruption that made it so that he had failed casinos, which is extremely hard to do. You have to be utterly idiotic in order to have the house lose money. He is blaming people of color, blaming Indigenous people. Does that sound familiar as well? That, like, your policies are so shit that you have to blame people of color, say like, oh, taking jobs or whatever the fuck, rather than acknowledging that, like, you're bad at governing, you have no interest in actually building out the economy that you're bought and sold by corporations and billionaires.
were even native enough to qualify for special protections.
I will tell you right now, they don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like the Indians. Now, maybe we say politically correct or not politically correct. They don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to Indians.
Thank God that's not the test of whether or not people have rights in this country or not, whether or not they pass your look test.
Depends whether, yeah.
When Congress brushed him off, Trump escalated. He launched a smear campaign, spending over $1 million on attack ads. But nothing he did defeated the tribal gambling houses. So a few years later, Trump changed tactics. In the early 2000s, he struck a deal with the Palm Springs Indians. Trump rebranded the tribe's casino, naming it after himself. For a while, it worked.
Yeah, he
But then
tends to do
Trump's
that.
casino empire started to crumble, and the Palm Springs Indians cut him loose, buying out his contract for $6 million. They dropped his name from the building, and just like that, Trump was out.
The Palm Springs Indians turned him down. They didn't want to do business with him. Anytime you disagree with him, you're on his hit list. You're an enemy of his, I reckon.
Native tribes are sovereign nations. They've got their own laws, tribal councils, and the right to self-rule. But they rely on the federal government for one thing.
We depend on federal funding just about every program we've got. We're not self-sufficient. Poverty has always been a problem in the Native American communities. They put us.
That is intentional. That is part of the genocidal oppressive policies. It is to keep Native tribes under the thumb of the American government rather than letting them have sovereignty, actual, complete sovereignty.
Closest town's 30, 40 miles away, you know, and it just, I don't know, that kind of isolated us.
This next order relates to the definition of birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment of the United States.
That's a good one. Birthright. That's a big one.
Just 2 months into office, Trump questioned native birthright citizenship, a right granted in 1924.
The president is using every lever.
His administration argued tribal allegiance made them less American.
Immigration laws of our country.
It's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential.
Then came the budget cuts,
People
targeting
who
climate
are,
programs that protect sacred
have a
lands
history
and
of
traditional food sources.
oppressing
Centuries of displacement
people
already
of color,
reshaped native diets.
Indigenous people.
Now, food sovereignty programs, vital for survival and culture, are on the chopping block.
We think of the bald eagle when we think about the most iconic animal in the United States. But their national mascot and their national animal is the American bison. Once driven to extinction, it's now slowly coming back because of the efforts of Native American nations like the Chippewa Cree, who are trying to bring the American buffalo back. But they depend on federal funding to do so. If the current administration pulls
Indigenous
the plug,
people
the American
everywhere
buffalo might die out all over again.
are
We
incredible
are on,
stewards of the earth.
Rocky Boys Indian Reservation.
Understanding how
here
to
in
take
Rocky
care
Boy,
of the
Montana, and we are on the Buffalo Ranch. Name of the Buffalo Ranch is Buffalo Child Ranch. The front bull there is going to be the older one out of all of them. You could tell he's older. You could tell by the size of his head. He's a much larger bull than the other four that's there. My English name is Theron Oates. My Indian name, my Native American name that my grandfather gave me, is stands on Eagle's ground.
Talk to us about this program. What are you trying to achieve with it?
So with our buffalo program, we are trying to achieve to where we are getting the buffalo meat back into the diets of our people. So the buffalo was everything to us. They gave us food, clothing, and then furs and hides for our lodges, to follow them. One of the policies was to eradicate the buffalo to kind of help conquer the Native Americans.
Imagine actually having respect
from the federal government
for animals and using animals in a way that
Daryl's hesitation says a
does
lot.
not destroy
On
the
reservations,
land.
speaking too openly about federal neglect can come with consequences. For the Chippewa Cree, building food security is just one part of the fight. The other is water. They're surrounded by dry prairie. Out here, every drop matters.
Prairie was a weird
My
way of
name's
saying
Martin
that.
Watson. My Indian name is White Eagle. I represent the tribe out at the treatment plant.
Martin is overseeing a massive project, a water pipeline and treatment plant that could finally bring clean running water to the reservation. We drive with him to the construction site. The pipeline spans more than 50 miles, but it's still years from completion. The tribe has been fighting for this for over 2 decades.
They built this to get water here to our reservation because our water system ain't very good right now. We're pretty much in dire need of it because when drought season comes, we have to really watch our water, maintain our water system. The water we have on the res ain't nothing like that water out there. I wouldn't drink it. I don't.
But the entire project depends on federal support. And with Trump pushing to cut environmental protections and tribal infrastructure budgets, tribes could lose the funds to protect their voter rights.
Every president was on board that got elected.
It said voter rights in the caption, but it's saying water rights.
What about
Also
now?
voting rights.
It's hard to say with the commander-in-chief.
Yep.
So where are we? What is this?
Something else that the government has used to further oppress Native tribes in the U.S. has been to make it so that infrastructure in general, so like, you know, water pipelines, getting clean water, but also access to the internet, that there are a lot of dead zones, that there are reservations that don't have any internet access. So when working for the government, when we would be getting out like educational materials on like re-education about ceremonial and traditional tobacco, that we would have to do like all printed materials because that's the best way to hand out information. And of course, like making sure that like things are done in an ethical manner where you are bringing people in from these various tribes at the very beginning of projects, having them lead the projects and inform what actually needs to be said and done, and then having them also be the ones to distribute. I mean, like, the government has caused so much fucking harm that it's like the least that can be done is involving people in areas that concern them, that affect them.
That's Lake Elwell, and we're kind of on the top of Tiber Dam, this is called.
Martin takes us to the Tiber Dam, a frozen reservoir set aside for the Chippewa Cree by President Clinton back in the late 90s. This is where the water treatment plant will get its water from. With this project, it's not just water at stake, but a major source of employment.
On our pipeline crews is 100% Native American.
Martin's one of the few with a stable job. Native Americans face some of the highest unemployment rates in the country, with this tribe alone seeing over 60% unemployment in recent years.
We get looked past a lot. I've seen it with my own eyes. People qualified to do the job and others picked in front of them that ain't qualified to do the job, and that's probably a big reason why, is who we are and how we've been looked at for generations.
Yep. Employment discrimination.
To meet the next generation of the Chippewa Cree, we head to the local school. Kids proudly display their art, handmade moccasins, and ceremonial belts they'll wear as they come of age. In one classroom, students are learning Cree, the tribe's official language and a vital link to their identity.
We are Dixie. That's so cool.
Tatua.
And that means?
Welcome.
Why do you like learning Cree?
Because it's culture.
Dustin is the head of the tribe's Cree language program. He runs a non-profit that is trying to revive the language.
We haven't produced any fluent speakers in over 50 years, and we only have about 80 fluent Cree speakers left. None of our children speak our language. None of them. Since they couldn't eliminate us, they plan to assimilate, to put us into the mainstream society. And one of the ways they did that was to eliminate our language.
Yep.
Because our language is our identity. That's who we are. The language is the key to everything that we are.
Trump just declared English the only official language of the US, a first in the nation's history.
Yeah.
It comes as tribal nations are racing to save their ancestral languages. Over 175 still spoken today.
That's my name in Cree.
The Indigenous Language Institute warns that without federal support,
Korea.
most
She said
could vanish
Cree.
by 2050. And with them,
Hello,
entire
Linton.
cultures
Welcome.
and histories.
How are you
But
doing?
each reservation has their own language. We're all unique. That's one of the things that the president is trying to take away by his executive order of English as the official language.
The prayer is, in our lifetime, to hear one of our own babies speak our language as their first language.
The Chippewa Cree are one of over 500 federally recognized tribes fighting just to exist in today's America.
Yep.
Systemic challenges.
Using language that oppressors, especially colonizers, are bent on erasing is a way to decolonize, to keep culture and traditions alive. that the US government, and it's not just the US government, like the Canadian government as well, when it comes to Indigenous people in North America, set up schools where they would take children away from their families, Indigenous children from their families, and put them in schools where they were Catholic a lot of the time, or Christian schools where they were forced to assimilate. They cut their hair. There was extreme abuse that happened, that they were not allowed to speak their language or practice any of their traditions or way of life, and how that is part of this larger ethnic cleansing genocidal project. So we see how this is continuing, and with fascism ever rising, how it is expanding to heighten these kinds of approaches right now. Good. How's your day been? It's been pretty good. Been pretty good. Just hanging in there.
Political threats, but still, they hold their community close. The whole Chippewa Cree comes together as a community, men and women, and they're preparing a sport called roping. And this weekend they're about to go in and compete in the sport where they have to rope a cattle or a calf and to tie it in. So would you say you are a cowboy?
I'd say I'm a cowboy.
In Australia too.
I swing a rope, I ride a horse.
Everywhere
I wear a
around the
cowboy
world,
hat,
this
I
has
enter
happened to
rodeos.
Indigenous people.
I'd say I'm a cowboy.
Literally kidnap children from Indigenous families.
Dancers
Yeah.
Gigi and Alyssa say the tribe's strength
Colonizer
comes from
behavior.
within, from holding on to who they are, no matter what's taken away.
We don't need all this money and this and that. As long as we can continue to keep our traditional ways of life, that's how I see our tribe thriving, even if anything else is taken away.
This is your land. You're here first.
Mhm.
Don't quit. Don't ever give up.
Hello.
That's my message.
As long as the grass grows and rivers flow and the sun shines, we'll be here.
We're still here. We're gonna be here forever.
Still here. Especially when we consider capitalism, global capitalism, white supremacist colonizing that is exported from Eurocentric places, but especially the US with its imperialist hegemony, that with all of these indigenous cultures, especially before colonizers came in and forced a lot of assimilation, that there was a lot more gender expansiveness in societies and matriarchy, and actually acknowledging that the earth belongs to everyone, having a respectful approach to taking care of the land, that this is in direct conflict with the goals of the capitalist ruling class. Going back to the casino thing with Donnie, like, how do you not make money off addiction? Yeah, exactly. That just shows you how fucking incompetent and greedy he is. That, like, with all of his projects, rather than doing things in like a normal way where he could make more money, that he would rather like siphon off all the money and then lie and cheat rather than like expanding these projects in a way that made sense, because it's just about like short-term greed and gain. Okay. So this is by OCO TV. Knowledge is meant to be shared. Cherokee National Treasure, Noel Grayson. I saw the beginning of this. I haven't seen it all the way through, but this concept is really powerful. A way to decolonize our minds and preserve traditions. West Papua too. They've been dropping chemical weapons on Indigenous people. Yes, exactly. And how there is this control of information where like the same people who are building these data centers on sacred Indigenous ground a lot of the time, where Indigenous people are the first who are negatively affected by this, that they're poisoning the land around them, poisoning the people, and that these same people are buying up all of these media outlets, that there really is no end to their greed, where they're also invested in the industrial war complex, where they are making money off of those chemical weapons. I'm glad you brought that up. I should go over that on a stream. I'm going to make a note of that.
Noel Grayson is a culture keeper. His knowledge and hunting skills run...
Oh, it's going to do that thing. Not showing the captions. I'm going to get ahead of it. Refreshing.
Noel Grayson is...
Just like continuing that line of thought, like in India, where my family is from, that with Hindu nationalism, there was this continuation of oppressive colonizing policies and approaches to maintaining this violent dominance that is still applied to indigenous tribes in India, where they are constantly being being ethnically cleansed with all of these policies. I may be wrong, but I think Bayer manufactured both Zyklon B for the Nazis and Agent Orange for the US, since they did a merger with Monsanto. I think you may be right. I'm gonna look that up.
Noel Grayson is a culture keeper. His knowledge and hunting skills run deep. Thankfully for us, it's his job to share that knowledge with the rest of the world. And for that, we are grateful.
I don't shoot a bow because I like archery. I started out shooting a bow because I like to eat. I like to hunt. You know, I'm an opportunistic hunter. If I go hunting and go out and say, oh, I see a quail, you know, if that's what you're nizzling.
Yep. Just taking a look at this. 2 chemical companies tied to... Whoa, Beyond Pesticides. This website looks sketchy, but... 2 chemical companies tied to human and environmental atrocities, Bayer and Monsanto, set to merge. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, Agent Orange. One whose chemical product was used to kill concentration camp victims. Yep, you're right. Under Adolf Hitler, and the other a product of the deadly defoliant Agent Orange, which was sprayed by the US government over Vietnam and left a legacy of health damage to the Vietnamese people and US veterans of the armed forces. Yeah. It's so utterly deplorable. And that's how you know as well that when it comes to capitalism, these empires, fascism, that they don't care who gets hurt as long as they can stay in power. Where like the people who claim to be like, oh, we care about patriotism and veterans. No, they never have. There's a reason why they refer to soldiers as assets, not like human beings, because that's what they are to them. So they don't care that US veterans were also affected by Agent Orange. Already, it's a deplorable thing to be doing. It goes against all of these international laws that was supposed to prevent the use of chemical warfare. But of course, that is not honored still to this day. I'm glad you brought that up.
He gives me to eat for that day. That's what I'm going to eat, you know. It's an old Cherokee thing, you know, Native American, I guess.
So moving more to Cherokee culture, which again, just to reiterate, tribes have very different cultures and practices, languages, and that even within like the Cherokee category tribe, that tribes within the Cherokee Nation can have different languages and very different traditions. Little insight into the world of Engineering University. Since my friend is studying, they have Lockheed Martin recruiting at their events and extracurriculars. Ugh. Yeah. It's so hard to be, especially for young people who are leaving college. Like, I ran into this as well. Like, my first, like, real job getting my degree was working as a, like, writer for an insurance company. And insurance is deeply unethical and exploitative and a racket. But that was, like, the only job I was able to get after, like, a year of applying to things where they prey on people out of desperation and also have this bad faith representation of what they do in order to make it so young people who are being educated, who might be more revolutionary in helping with causes that actually improve the state of humanity and the earth, that they want to take these people so that they can exploit them and get cheap labor.
There's Noel Grayson. I'm a bow maker. Okay, I've been making bows since I was a little child, starting out with just a stick and a string. I grew up here in Tahlequah. I was actually born just west of here on a place called Stick Ross Mountain. Grew up by the river from the time I was about 5 or 6 years old. There was tons of cane, there's tons of flint, you know, and that was my toys when I was growing up, just rocks and sticks. See, my brothers always took me hunting and fishing, something I've always done. But my brothers eventually, you know, they just quit making bows and arrows and went on with, you know, being teenagers. I never quit. I just kept trying to make them, just kept playing with them. We're at the Cherokee Heritage Center, and we're in Dilligwa right now. Dilligwa is a village of recreation of a Cherokee village based off of the 1700s, early 1700s, and we try to say 1710, okay? But it's a living history village. We try to get people out here who know what they're doing and know their stuff, you know, demonstrate and show people this is what we did. I teach flint knapping to the kids, okay? And I'm teaching them in the most basic way that I can because they're children. You only got their attention for a second. So I sit there and say, you can hit it with rock,
True.
hit it with another rock, hit it with an antler. The main thing is angles, okay? There's gotta be something there to take off. And when I teach adults, I tell them, don't let it get complicated. You're making a stone tool. All you're doing is carving a rock by flaking it. So if you want to learn how to do it, learn how to flake. Put it right where you want it, and then you hit the antler itself, and you see how that removes a flake. But when I see somebody who has an interest in it, all you got to do is keep that spark going, right?
I love that approach of understanding that it's not about trying to present like a sophisticated, like needlessly complicated way to explain something, that it's like you can show kids and help them understand things that, like, the same explanation that works for kids can work for adults.
And it's going to build up later. It's a responsibility. You know, I'm a recognized master in doing this stuff, but I still ask people, you know, if I see somebody, I'll ask them, hey, how do you do that? You know, how do you do it?
I shouldn't have said not sophisticated, of like, in quotation, sophisticated is what I was implying. But yeah, unnecessarily convoluted.
Because it may open up a different avenue, something that I haven't even thought of yet. Scott Ratcliffe. I learned a lot off him. He was an old Cherokee guy that worked out here, and he told me one time, we were sitting around talking, he was a really interesting man. He told me one time, he said, you watch what I do. He said, because one of these days, you got to do it. You got to be the one who passes it on and teach it. And I just kind of went, okay, okay. I listened to him. I didn't actually know that I would end up out here doing it. I asked my dad. When I was young, my dad showed me how to make a stone tool. He showed me percussion. But when I asked him about a bow, he didn't show me. He told me. I said, Daddy, how do you actually make a bow? He said, follow one growth ring, get the size and the shape of it, make sure the limbs bend evenly. When I make a bow, I'm trying to make every inch of it bend from right here to right here, so each.
So you see as well, like the place that they were at, that it was a nonprofit foundation, essentially being granted permission and resources to continue traditions, that is a way to continue oppression, of constantly being at the mercy of the government and these resources that are given in a condescending way rather than giving people sovereignty and the resources that they need to be self-sufficient.
Each piece of it is bending evenly. In Cherokee, you got, who speaks Cherokee? Understands a little bit of it. Who's ever heard Katuki? And what's it mean?
Working together.
Katuki. Every inch of that bow was working together with the other side, right? You understand that? Now, I know you guys have been on the job where somebody's fluffing off, you know, not doing their fair share of the work. It makes it harder on everybody else. But when everybody works together, it's a lot easier. But I want every inch of it bending so that it works together, Katuki. Everything's alive around us, no matter what, you know. When I go cut wood, I talk to that tree. I mean, you know, people think I'm nutty, you know, maybe because a little bit, you know, but I'll sit there and tell it what I want and what I'm gonna do with it, you know. I haven't cut wood, bow wood in a long time, simply because we have a younger generation coming up behind us, and I don't want them to sit there and have to struggle to find the wood that it takes. Same way with hunting, you know, you shouldn't overhunt, you know, which is what we did in the 1700s when we started hunting for skins to trade with the Europeans. We almost took the deer population and decimated
because
it
of
back in the
colonizers.
Southeast. It's made a comeback. But
colonial extraction.
we were really disrespecting those animals back then. I think we paid a price for it. But respecting animals like that, you took that animal's life, you should use every piece of it, and we were good at that back in the day. Now what I have is sinew, which is a ligament and tendon. Now I've actually stripped this one down. You can let this stuff dry out.
Which is also the same concept that they were referring to with bison and buffalo in the previous video, of maintaining, like growing the buffalo population and emphasizing the use of every part of the animal as an ethical way to and respectful way to approach having like stewardship over these animals.
And it'll peel apart just like thread. You know, we were excellent at using every part of an animal. Apologize to the animal, ask forgiveness, but you also give thanks for it. Now you take that skin, you make a hide out of it, you know, make leather out of it, make clothing out of it to warm yourself. You're gonna use that animal's brain because it has a fine oil in it. So you can make tools out of the bones. You're gonna eat the meat. You're gonna take sinew and you can use that to sew with. You can tie arrows on it. You can tie feathers on an arrow with it. Everything with the sinew. You see it nowadays. You see people throwing deers out, back straps missing, you know, the horns cut off. The rest of the deer's laying there. Somebody could have used that meat. You know, somebody could have ate it. Somebody would have been happy to get it. But we need to teach this younger generation not just to hunt, but the respect of that animal. When I was young, I'd eat a lot. You know, I'd go out hunting, you know, anything, you know, but I'm just not hungry like that anymore. I don't want to take something's life to extend my own. I can look at it for the beauty of it nowadays if I see it out in the woods, you know, mushrooms, anything. I used to think I had to eat everything I seen that was edible. You shoot a bow like this, I mean, there is a way to aim it. My brothers taught me how to aim it. You just look down that arrow, you know, line everything up, right? Line the string up with the arrow. Everything else is about elevation, you know, judging distance. Take that animal quick. You owe it to them, right? You owe that animal the best shot you can give it. There's one right over there. Far side. You see the fence line? Straight across. Let's see what we can do about educating this little guy. think I dusted his butt, leave some dirt on him. I share knowledge because knowledge, back in the day, we didn't place a value on money, on gold, on silver. We had all that stuff back in the Southeast. It was just too soft of a metal for us to use. But what we did treasure, what was a treasure to us, was the knowledge. That knowledge got passed down. Nowadays, we place that value on material needs. But having knowledge like this when I was growing up, that's the kind of knowledge I sought. Somewhere along the line, some little kid's gonna say, yeah, he showed me how to do this. You know, I know how to do this because he kept it alive.
Indigenous women keep going missing in Montana. Yeah, there is a movement called Missing and Murdered Women that is to draw attention to how many women go missing and murdered who are Indigenous, and how there is very little interest in solving these cases, that they are actively covered up by the government and by the pigs, especially. Okay. So, continuing on, I wanted to watch this interview, Leonard Peltier on Indigenous Rights, his half-century in prison and more. Wait, or was it this one? What is the difference between these two?
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In this special broadcast, we spend the hour with longtime Indigenous activist Leonard Peltier. In February, he was released from a federal prison in Florida after spending nearly half a century behind bars for a crime he says he did not commit. President Biden, on his last day in office, commuted Peltier's life sentence to home confinement. Biden's decision followed mounting calls by tribal leaders and supporters around the world in a decades-long community-led campaign fighting for his freedom. In the 1970s, Peltier was involved with the American Indian movement, known as AIM. In 1975, 2 FBI agents and 1 young AIM activist were killed in a shootout on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. 2 AIM members were later arrested for killing the agents. At the trial, the jury acquitted them. Leonard Peltier was
and the jury acquitted them. We see how the U.S. government is continually an aggressor when it comes to marginalized people. That's part of the marginalization, is this violent aggression. Like, why were the FBI agents there? Why were they there? Who probably escalated things? You know, the side that has a track record of violating treaties and genocide and ethnic cleansing,
arrested later,
perhaps?
tried separately and convicted. Peltier has always maintained his innocence. Notable supporters of Leonard Peltier over the years have included South African President Nelson Mandela, Pope Francis, and Amnesty International. Supporters of Peltier say his trial was marked by gross FBI and federal prosecutorial misconduct, including the coercion of witnesses, fabricated testimony, and suppressed exculpatory evidence. After being released in February, Leonard Peltier returned home to live on the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Reservation in Belcourt, North Dakota. On September 12th, Leonard Peltier celebrated his 81st birthday. People gathered throughout the day, visiting him and calling from around the world to celebrate. That night and the next day, we spoke to Leonard Peltier in his living room in his first extended TV radio broadcast interview since his release from prison.
Hi, I'm Amy Goodman, host of Democracy Now!, in the home of Leonard Peltier,
just recently freed from prison after 49 years.
Plus 2 months.
Juries have acquitted
Plus 2
so many
months.
similar cases, so much so that both the
I've
UK
spoken
and
to you
US
so
want to
many
remove jury
times,
trials.
Leonard,
Yeah,
in prison.
exactly. Exactly, which is how we know that it's not about justice. It's always about control and maintaining this system of violent dominance rather than actually investigating in a good faith manner what happened, because guess what? The government is at fault. And how this is a continual pattern, as we were talking about yesterday, how political prisoners are historically taken in, they're incarcerated because of these trumped up charges that they are blamed for things, that this is what oppressors do. And then they say like, oh, now we need the death penalty, where there is a disproportionate amount of people who are political prisoners, who are people of color, and have multiple intersections of marginalization that are on death row. A lot of the Palestine Action cases went that way, yes, along with their appeal, but even after the appeal, they're still enforcing the prescription that was deemed illegal. Yeah. And so it makes us have to question, do we actually have democracy? Do we actually have justice? How do we fight back against this system that is never really interested in making it so that people can live in a fair way, that it's all about control? Which is why, like, when people are like wondering why people are moving more left, especially younger people, it's like, we can see this. Like, we can see this happening. How, like, just speaking out for Palestinian liberation, like, we have political prisoners in the UK and the US because of this, which is something that I want to talk about tomorrow. And how they're, like, in Israel, how there are all of these false charges used against Palestinians, and how they recently passed a law that is a sweeping way to have all of these executions that is extremely fascist, and how this is a pattern in history by trying to suppress people, but particularly people who are engaged in resistance and revolutionary action.
In various prisons. Several of them supermax
Their logic was
prisons.
that they're appealing
It
the
is
appeal, yeah.
quite astonishing to be here with you in
But
person.
even if you follow their own
Tell us
logic,
where
arrests
we
aren't
are.
just
Where are we
just
sitting?
since there was an appeal.
We're sitting in my home.
Exactly. Which is why, like, the phrase, like, justice delayed is justice denied is a thing, because when people are just kept in prison, it just keeps the process going on and on. Like, they're still in a cage. They still are having their human rights and dignity be violated. And that is the intention, so that they can't be out in the world and gathering more of a resistance force and planning resistance. And a lot of the time, like, what they don't understand is that people are not dumb. Like, the people who are seeing this understand, I mean, the people who are empathetic and understand why this is happening, understand that, like, the government is not going to stop, that it's only going to continue, which is why I want to keep talking about how, like, in the US with this current administration, they keep expanding prisons, they keep expanding for-profit prison contracts, these ICE detention centers, that they are reinstating all of these forms of execution because we have government contractors that will be able to make money off of lethal injections and firing squads. Multiple of the activists have been rearrested since release too. Yeah. Yeah. It's like we see that in the UK and the US. And, like, people wonder why there is revolutionary resistance growing, because we can see that the state has this outsized power and that they are not interested in helping us to live equitable lives.
That was given to me by my supporters. This was not given to me by the tribe or
Look at this
the
dog.
government had nothing to do with it. I was released by Biden under commutation of my sentence and home confinement.
Which I'm glad that Biden did that, but also, like, why did it take him so fucking long? You know? Like, why wasn't his sentence commuted way before this? Like, obviously it wouldn't have been done under the previous Trump administration, as we have seen how he has a very aggressive vendetta against Native people. But, like, why wasn't it done before this?
Actually, what happened was I was taken out of one prison cell and really put into another type of prison, but this is my home now. This is my home, so it's a million times better.
Wait, what do you mean when you say you were taken out of...
There are currently 33 political prisoners for Palestine in UK jails.
Low-key, you were telling me
without
about
trial.
him.
Accused of the compliment of trying to stop the Gaza genocide with their bare hands. History will absolve you and condemn the courts. For our brothers and sisters behind the wall. For our sisters and brothers that gave their all. For our brothers and sisters behind the wall. For our sisters and brothers that gave their all. For our brothers and sisters behind the wall. For the aunties and uncles now facing court. For the mothers and
how
fathers
many
awaiting calls.
hunger strikers there are that have
vindicate you all.
had to be close to death. Yeah, all of, like, the elderly people.
You are the best of us, we wet for you, a symbol of collective love. The depths of you, a special precious metal that will never rust. You bled for us, shed for us, blood, tears, sweat for us.
It went for
Forever
nearly
trust you, know
70
the hidden
days,
truth
yeah.
of what the terror
And
does
they
is
were
very
like, yeah,
strange.
they're
Many say you're freer than
having
the rest of us. Forget
heart
the judge you saw above the
palpitations.
core. He could never touch, and this is why you sit inside. And killers ride in limos, drive they militarize
Fuck
lives.
Kid
Got the nerve to
Starver.
say they're civilized. The
Fuck
fire
Marco
in your
Rubio.
eyes. The reason our spirits didn't die, the sinister crimes can't be
And that
legitimized
other
by
lady.
bitter lies. We kiss your hands. Your love's a river to a distant land. No prison can hold you in history. Your decision stands your key to the world.
That's
with how
cool.
deeply you
Donate
felt.
to
And
his
energy and love they can't keep in a cell. There'll be space in the room when you're playing this tune. Cause with your two hands you wrote your names on the moon. For our brothers and sisters behind the wall. For our sisters and brothers that gave their all. For our brothers and sisters behind the wall. For our sisters and brothers that gave their all. For our brothers and sisters behind the wall. For the aunties and uncles now facing court. For the mothers and fathers awaiting calls. You will liberate us all, we will vindicate you all.
This is what art is for. I know this, like, cops in the UK can be very aggressive, but I don't know what it is about, like, their hats and, like, the stuff that they wear that doesn't, like, look as threatening to me as, like, what cops do in the US. Maybe it's also because cops in the US are always armed, too.
Us, when freedom comes, your souls they will never crush
The
you.
round hats are the best ones. Yeah, they are.
They can never kill you. Bell for us and use your two hands to express
Like the Bobby hat, the bowl-looking ones. Yeah. Yeah, where it feels like you could just, like, bonk them on the head and then they would, like, be knocked out.
Terrorism's not a song of music. They just blew a baby to bits like he wasn't human. The criminals are not the ones saying stop the shooting. The criminals are the ones in the prosecution. Key to the world with how deeply you felt and energy and love they can't.
And people wonder how, like, genocide can happen.
Play in this tune, 'cause with your two hands hands, you wrote your names on the moon. For our brothers and sisters behind the
because
wall.
it's maintained
For our sisters
by
and brothers that gave their all.
complicit
For our
nation
brothers and
states.
sisters behind the wall. For
The
our
world
sisters and brothers
understands
that
what's
gave their
happening.
all.
The majority
For our
of the
brothers and
world
sisters
is
behind
for
the
Palestinian
wall.
liberation.
For the aunties and uncles not facing court. For the mothers and fathers awaiting calls. You will liberate us all. We will vindicate you all.
Through it all, you stood tall. When
Some of the round hats.
cowards ran, you refused to fall. You changed the world with your hands. You changed
Yeah, how it was
this world.
declared a
Bless
terrorist
your
organization.
hands.
Yeah, that's super cool. Thank you for sharing. There was a great video of a cop being wedgied on top of a fence on a bad day. Oh my god, like he was like hanging by his underwear. If you're able to find that, I would gladly watch it. Amazing.
Of your prison cell after more than 49 years, and you're saying that you're not completely free.
No. I'm on very restrictive restrictions. Even to go to the post office, I got to call I call her my handler. I have to call her to go to the post office.
Have a fucking look at this. Loading the van up.
My handler, yeah. It's like, and we see that this happens with people who have been detained by ICE as well, where if they are able to actually get out, that they have already suffered all of this dehumanization and mistreatment, horrible conditions that they have been placed in, that they shouldn't be there in the first place. Like, it's just utterly inhumane. But also how there is all of this surveillance put on people after they have been imprisoned. Copying. Who did this? Was he trying to like get over something? I hope someone did it.
Look at this. Loading the van up. There's a gather stuck on top of the fucking fence, boy. His hat's on the fucking floor and all sorts. What's he fucking doing? I can't make out if he's hooked or I don't know what he's fucking doing up there. Oh, fucking word.
Oh my god.
He's proper stuck, Chev. Oh my god, he's proper stuck. He's radioing someone. Oh fuck, he's dropped his fucking bomb. Fucking hell, he's dropped it.
Now they're afraid.
He's dropped it. Fucking hell.
He's gonna be so mad after.
Oh, have a word. Poor Chavy, look at that. Hello. What we got here, officer? Hanging bacon. Fuck's sake.
Hanging bacon, exactly. He's gonna be salty bacon after this. Proper stuck.
I'm nearly finished. I ain't going nowhere. I'll see the outcome of this.
Dropped the radio. Oh, that's so good to see. That's so good to see. What was happening recently? In the US, they were interviewing all of these cops, and like there were cops crying. I covered this a little bit ago. And I was like, the tears of cops are delicious. What was it? It was like all of this made up shit. Oh, it was the Afro Man trial where they were crying because like they illegally raided his house on trumped up charges. Once again, how often this happens, especially to marginalized people. And they were crying about like, yeah, this song ruined my life. Yeah, you know what's worse is having your privacy be invaded and violated and your rights be violated. That is amazing. I loved that. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to return to that
until I'm back.
on days I'm feeling down.
Anything, if I go shopping or whatever, I have to do that. If I have to go 100 miles past the nation, I don't call my place a reservation either. We're nations of people. I have to get a pass, usually from Washington,
Reframing
D.C.
that language.
To go to usually medical or religious ceremonies on different native nations.
So let's go back to that moment when you were in that prison cell in Coleman, in Florida,
artwork.
and you got
So
word
stunning.
that President Biden had commuted your sentence. It was just hours before he was leaving office. Can you tell us about that process, how it took place?
Well, as I went through the years filing for pardons and stuff, Ronald Reagan was the first one to promise to leave me, pardon me. Somebody in Washington stopped it. There's only one organization that could have stopped it and didn't have the power to stop it, but
the false
still
promises
somehow are in
of
power
empire
enough to where they can override
breaking their
the President
promises.
of the United States, our Congress. It's the FBI. And Reagan promised to let me go. And the FBI intervened, and that was stopped. And Bill Clinton and Obama, and finally we
why
get
didn't
to,
Obama do that? This is what we mean
Biden.
by neoliberal
And,
fascism.
Biden, there was pressure put on him from all over the world. Almost every tribal nation here in the United States filed for my release, demanding my release. The United Nations did a full report on my case, and they demanded that I be
a rare instance
released
where the United
immediately
Nations was on the right
and to
side
be
of history.
paid, quote unquote. Hundreds of Congress and senators and millions of people.
Then the Pope.
And the Pope, the last Pope and the current Pope. And world leaders, many world leaders demanded my release.
The Nobel Peace Laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu?
Yes, I was also nominated nominated 4 times because of my work from prisons for a Nobel Prize. And the board and everything granted it, but somebody intervened again. So 4 times I lost that. I think
Probably the U.S.
pushing
government
Biden to stop any possibility of signing a pardon. So he didn't sign it until the last moment. And actually, a day and a half before he actually signed it and his term was completed, I just took that position that, nah, he's not going to do this. And I just kind of laid back in my cell and I thought to myself, well, I guess I die here. And this is the only ultimate sacrifice I can make. And I have to accept it. I have no other choice. And as I laid there and thinking about it, other people came by, even guards, would tell me, don't give up, Leonard, don't give up. And other prisoners, and some of them prisoners were telling me that, Leonard, he's got to know that if he doesn't sign this.
It is a pattern for people who are falsely imprisoned that they maintain their innocence throughout their entire imprisonment because they understand the injustice of it. And that this is something that often is to their detriment, where they may be offered plea deals or they may be treated worse because they are trying to maintain their innocence. But we see how when people are falsely accused, it just magnifies this fire to keep going.
This is political suicide for the Democratic Party, because there's millions of people that are going to break away from this if he doesn't. And so I was laying there and I was thinking, well, let's try one more thing. So I called a representative of mine.
The Nobel Prize is totally an independent award body. It couldn't be another tool of empire.
Native people in the administration who were
Maria Machado.
with Biden.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, tell them
exactly.
Give me a commutation on my sentence and home confinement.
The ruling class doing what they do.
And did this, and that's what I ended up with, and that's what I'm.
As in the last lynching
right
of
How did you
USA
hear
on Matt
that
Charles
you were
Peter.
going to
Yes.
be free?
Yes, exactly.
Well, it was kind of unbelievable. In the immediate moment, I thought somebody was just playing games with
of
me,
not
and
being
I
guilty.
Thought, I'm going to wake up in this
people
long dream.
maintain
and
their innocence.
I'm in this cell, and I'll be in there. And I really didn't believe it until actually I walked through the
that's
house
another
here.
great example.
What was it like to leave Coleman?
Wow, imagine living.
This reminds me of the show The Night Of, where I watched it with my partner a couple of weeks ago. It has Riz Ahmed. He is an amazing actor that I want to talk about it more for Culture Corner on Friday. But it essentially is a story where he is falsely accused. He makes like some of the dumbest choices in it, though. That's like, why did you do that? That makes you look guilty. But shows how these systems, like even when you have someone who is innocent, what people are forced to do in order to survive in the carceral system, that even when people are innocent, that it forces them to engage in behavior and acts that they wouldn't normally, because they are in this situation where they don't have any human rights.
In a cubicle.
That's what's
larger
necessary
than some
to survive.
people's closets for all those years, and they finally are able to walk out of there. I mean, for me, it was unbelievable that this was actually happening to me. But, I mean, the feeling of, wow, I can go, wow, I'll be home, I won't have to go to bed in this cold cell with one blanket, and I won't have to smell my sully going to the bathroom. I won't have to eat cold meals. Is this really over for me? Is this really going to be over for me? And it was disbelief. A lot of it was disbelief.
Good to see you, Linton. Thanks for being here.
And now we're sitting here in your living room,
Have a good rest of your
surrounded by
day,
the paintings
evening.
you did in prison.
Yes.
You are an artist extraordinaire.
This is his
maybe about
artwork.
to have
Stop. Oh my god. This is incredible. This painting, Tan, kind of reminds me of one of the ones that you sent that your sister was doing. I also want to show that for Culture Corner on Friday.
a gallery showing in New York. Through the years, you sold your paintings.
Wow.
Talk about painting in prison and how you came to be a painter.
Well, see, a lot of people think we were allowed to paint ourselves and stuff. We were not.
No.
We were not allowed. They had an art room, hobbycraft area, and one of the hobbycrafts was painting. So you have to sign up for that. A lot of people think that all the
you have
art
to pay for their
supplies
supplies.
was given to you by the prison, the hobbycrafter. That's not true either. We have to buy our own. And I went and signed up immediately to go into the art hobbycraft, and I used to go there every day, and that's what I did. I painted and painted and painted until I was able to create my own style.
Incredible.
And everything, yeah.
Can you see your paintings now?
No, 2 months ago, I think now, I lost 80% of my vision. And I'm in the process of hopefully get my eyesight treated and returned.
We're continuing with our conversation with longtime Indigenous activist Leonard Peltier in Belcourt,
Probably
North Dakota.
deteriorated under the conditions of being
81st
incarcerated,
birthday
not being able
weekend
to get the
on
medical care
Turtle
that
Mountain
he
Band of
needed
Chippewa
and
Cree
deserved.
Reservation. He was released in February from the federal prison in Florida after nearly half a century behind bars.
So take us back in time. Introduce us to you, starting by saying your name, who your parents were, the nations they were a part of, your family, where you lived growing up.
Okay, my name is, English name is Leonard Peltier. I'm 81 years old as of yesterday. My father is a Chippewa Cree from this reservation, this nation right here. I keep saying reservations because we was taught from childhood that we are all reservations, we're Indians, and we're not Indians. And this is not a reservation. We made treaties with the United States government, and the Constitution says they shall only make treaties with sovereign nations. So we're sovereign nations. We're not, we're not Indians, as they claim to be, as they claim we are. And
This is something that came up when I worked for the state. There is a nonprofit called the Urban Indian Center of Salt Lake that we worked with, and so being like a media person, as I mentioned before, we would work together on disseminating materials that were educational. Often I would circumvent certain approval processes. Just applying more of like this anarchist approach to actually getting shit done that never would have been able to be approved because of the deeply fascistic policies that were discriminatory. So when we were meeting for the first time, being introduced, that they were saying, like, we were talking about why we were getting into the work that we did and how important it is to decolonize. I mentioned that, like, being Indian, that I am very interested in decolonizing through education and preserving tradition and culture. And they're really excited. They're like, oh, what tribe are you from? I'm like, no, I'm Southeast Asian. That it's like still to this day, when we are using the language of colonizers, that we are having to confront the idiotic mistake of Columbus, that he mistook the people who were native in the Americas as Indian because he thought he was going to India. So, like, you know, there are some people that have reclaimed the word Indian who are native where they like it and it is a term of empowerment, and there are other people that don't like it. So it's just one of those exonyms, like a falsely attributed name, place of origin to people that people either embrace for reclaiming the name or they reject it, and it is a deeply personal thing. But still dealing with this issue.
My mother's from
400 years later.
But again, that's not the real name. The real name is Spirit Lake, and that's of the Dakota people. I was raised majority of my life here with my grandparents, which is usually the traditional way of my people. The grandparents will take the children and raise them. But when Grandpa died, Grandma had no way to support us. So she went to the agency here to ask for help. And in retaliation, they took us and put us in a boarding school.
What boarding school?
Wapton, North Dakota, 1953. I was there till 1950 for 3 years, 56. And it was extremely brutal conditions.
How old were you?
I was 9 then when I went. And,
Talk about the point of these boarding schools. Was your hair cut? Did they stop you from speaking your language?
They did. That was the purpose of the schools, is to take the Indian out of the Indian. Is what they literally
forced
was the
assimilation.
order. They took us to the boarding schools. The first thing they did was cut all our buzz cut our hair, took it all off, and then we took us into the shower. We showered, and we come out of the shower, and we reported all over our bodies DDT. As you know, that's poisonous.
They poured DDT over your body?
DDT out of cans on your head and the whole body.
Jesus
And then they
Christ.
give us an issue of clothes, bedding, and assigned us to a bed. And that was the beginning of our treatment. It was extremely strict school. And beatings were regular for any little violation of those rules.
And these schools also were very Christian, run by churches a lot of the time. They were state sanctioned. But we see how this imposed Christianity has been used historically for the oppression and brutalization of people.
I might have been a little hot-headed, I don't know. But when I first got there, there was a group, they called themselves the Resistors. And I immediately joined them, and I became part of the Resistors. So we would sneak behind the gymnasium, and we would talk our language. We would sing some songs.
Hello, Aliana.
Even do some prayers.
Did you hear about the 20 folk
And we
who
got
attacked a
got
gas
the
pipeline
meat out of us.
construction site with
You
axes
wrote
in North
in
British
your
Columbia?
book, Prison
No.
Ratings, My Life as My Sundance,
Direct
that
action.
You consider these boarding schools
If
your
you have
first
any
imprisonment.
Yes.
like
it
videos or
was.
something?
It was.
I'll
I
look
found
this up.
the rules more restrictive than when I ended up in prison.
Direct action
So
speak emoji.
you go to this residential school with your
Oh, I need to
cousin
create
and
one of
sister
those.
for 3 years. Where do you come back to? And how did you maintain your language and your culture?
One of the best ways to
I came back here to live
resist
with my father,
fascism, capitalism,
and they were still living in log
colonizers.
cabins, no electricity, no running water. We had to haul water, we had to haul wood, and we only had $55 to live on, which was my father's World War II military benefits. And that's what
you
we
saw
had
it
to
on
live
Instagram.
on. And,
I'll look this up.
We were facing.
Thank you for telling me about
We were
this.
facing the time of termination. The United States government wrote a bill, passed by Congress, signed by the president, of termination. In 1956, was supposed to be completed by 1985, and the first one to be terminated was the Menominee Indians of Wisconsin. They had millions of prime land, timber, and lakes to make hunting lodges and other things out there. It was beautiful, which they did today. They got all those things out there today. But they came and took all that land from them. Then they come here in 1958. Was it 58? Yeah, 58. I was 13 years old then. And they came and told us, we have been terminated and we have to accept it. We were supposed to be the second reservation to be terminated.
The Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Cree.
Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Cree, yes. And my father and all of them and their generation, a lot of people left on relocation. They said, it's hopeless. We can't fight these people. They're too powerful. They're just too powerful. It's, you know, maybe life will be better over there and stuff like this on this.
Yeah, I'm looking online and not seeing that, but again, this kind of stuff is very suppressed. This is the benefit of social media, of being able to see things that, you know, media outlets are not covering. Oh, you put your first down payment down? That's amazing. Congratulations. Another step for resistance. It's very suppressed, yeah.
Relocation, so they picked this city to go to. A lot of them went to Washington State in Oregon. And it was a small group of us stayed here and said, no, we're not leaving. So my dad and his generation said, well, what do you mean been terminated? You can't come here and tell us that we got to leave and you're going to just terminate us as a race of people and tell us that we no longer exist? Go f yourself. Come on, let's fight it out. And
hello. Yeah, go fuck yourself. I was proud of them.
I was 13 years old. They stopped all provisions. One little girl died over here from malnutrition, and that's what really got everybody angry.
So they would starve you out.
Yeah, they were making conditions so hard that we were accepting termination. We were leaving. A lot of people took it, well, at least my kids won't starve to death.
And the BIA reversed its decision?
They reversed their decision and gave us $50
like a phone.
Vouchers?
Yeah.
Vouchers.
Exactly.
To buy groceries here.
Phones are spies.
Everybody got, the whole reservation got $50.
And they didn't disband the
No, they got the hell out of it because we told them we're going to.
I do think if we all had times, like, not like the government can't observe us when our phones are off, but the more that we are able to communicate not through digital means, the better off we will be with resistance organizing. And even though that's hard because, like, the internet allows us to have more of a reach, ultimately, when we have organizing that's done close by us, like directly in community, that often is the most effective anyway.
Fight them.
So this was really the beginning of the Red Power movement and the founding of AIM.
Well,
right?
I guess so, in so many ways.
The American Indian movement, which you want to rename the American.
But they were doing that for, I mean, my people have been fighting back for 500 years.
Yeah, hello.
Amy.
But the modern day.
Yeah, the modern day stuff. But no, we went to war with them. We went to all kinds of different levels of.
Yeah, he's like, resistance didn't start with me, is what he's clarifying.
Resistance.
Resistance, you know.
So talk about the founding of AIM, the American Indian Movement, which you today would like to rename the American Indigenous.
Well, I was involved in a number of different organizations before I joined AIM. And one of the biggest ones that I was,
communication.
I helped organize the United Tribes of all Indians in Washington State, and we took over Fort Lawton. One of the treaties that
thank you for letting me know. I'm going to have to check that out.
Our people older people were pushing this too, but they just passed. All of our knowledge came from traditionalists. That's what policies, the American Indian movement. We followed their. First of all, people got to understand the American Indian movement policy is they can't come onto this reservation and start dictating their policy. They have to be invited by the traditionalists or tribal government or what else. We can't just go onto a reservation and say, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. No, we can't do that, and we don't do that. We have to be invited first. So,
yeah, we need more of this.
Anyway, this was before I joined the American Indian Movement.
This is great.
I was involved with the fishing and hunting struggles over there. That was a big area that they really fought hard and got really...
fishing and hunting rights.
Yes, treaty rights. In fact, Marlon Brando got arrested with us in 1955.
Yeah, that's true.
One of them lakes. I wasn't there, but he was.
He also refused to accept an Oscar. He was very outspoken for Indigenous rights, which is rare to see people in the ruling class in Hollywood that they have any sort of backbone or sense of morality. But he was on the front lines of like actually being in places with Indigenous resistors, which is cool. But instead of him accepting the award in person, he had someone who was Indigenous accept it for him. And I can't remember if it was because of this circumstance that he didn't go for protest. I'm gonna look this up.
He got arrested fishing and hunting with the natives out there.
So talk about the occupation of the BIA offices in Washington, moving on to Wounded Knee and Pine Ridge.
Well, it just, our resistance became extremely popular. The American Indian movement was growing, and not just here in America, Canada, Central America. See, a lot of full-bloods all through Central America, more than here in the United States. And we were uniting with all of them, all those natives across this country, across this whole continent, I mean. And we were uniting,
Okay. Here we go. Sacheen Littlefeather. So Maria Louise Cruz was an American-born actress and activist for Native American civil rights. After her death, she was accused by family members and journalists of falsely claiming Native American heritage. Okay, interesting. That's, if she did do that, that's deplorable. Just like a Rachel Dolezal situation. Yeah, she represented Marlon Brando at the 45th Academy Awards in 1973, where she, on Brando's behalf, declined the Best Actor award that he won for his performance in The Godfather, arguably the thing he's most famous for. The favorite to win, Brando boycotted the ceremony as a protest against Hollywood's portrayal of Native Americans. Cool. Whoops. And to draw attention to the standoff at Wounded Knee. During her speech, the audience's response to Brando's boycotting was divided between booing and applause. After the Academy Awards speech, Littlefeather worked in hospice care. She continued her activism for Native American issues, especially including healthcare and unemployment. Yeah, as we were seeing in this other video, that unemployment is very high among Native people, and that is an example of marginalization. What a Dawn. Yeah, Dawn behavior, exactly. Interesting. She said her father was of Apache and Yaqui ancestry. They also said that their father was of Spanish-Mexican descent and had no tribal ties. Okay, so she fabricated this? That's gross. I mean, glad she was involved in activism, but it's a wild thing to do. What's a Don? That's a good question. Like a mafia Don is someone who is like a commander, essentially, in the mafia. There are different like ranks for Dons. Yeah, so that's like what The Godfather is about. And so he was acting in a manner that was Don-like for resistance, which is cool. Especially in Hollywood, where, like, as we just read, that mixed reception is very revealing.
Pull him together with the American Indian. That's why we became a threat to the government.
Just so we can get to.
And they later on when I was arrested, after I got arrested, this one guy was telling me, he said, "Yeah, I just went down to Mexico, someplace, one of the towns," and he said they were organizing resistance and stuff like this. He said, I was down there visiting him. He said, I went to this guy told me he was some kind of medicine man or something. So I went down there and visited him. And so I went into his place, he had a kind of a hut like home, I guess. And he said, what did I see? He said, I see your poster on one of the walls. That's so far back. We went through all that stuff. And so anyway.
But especially for young people to understand. I mean, you're talking about this critical moment of 1973 for
And 5.
60s, actually.
What's that?
Started in the 60s.
And also the height of the anti-war movement.
Well, I mean, I'm rereading this on Maria Louise Cruz. It's like, just because she is not part of the tribes that she claimed to be, it doesn't mean that she doesn't have indigenous ancestry, because people who are Mexican are indigenous to Mexico, to North America. So that may have been an approach that she was taking before there was more discourse on talking about like the effects of colonization among Mexican people in reclaiming indigenous heritage.
And the role and the effect of the anti-war movement on the Native American movement and vice versa. If you can talk about those critical
that's still
moments.
not good that she was
I was, and others were, a lot of
claiming
us
heritage
we were also
that
involved
wasn't hers.
in the peace marches and with the blacks and the anti-war movements and things like that. We were involved in all that stuff too. But we were working on trying to get their support, and they were working on trying to get our support. Then the hippies came out, and the hippies really helped us. The hippies did a lot to help us.
Be quite
They started
nuanced.
dressing like natives.
Yeah, that's what
they started doing things like
imagine.
native people, and a lot of them came from very, very wealthy families. A lot of people.
And a
hated
lot
them.
of people,
So that's one of the
because of
reasons the government hated
colonization,
them,
do
is
not
because they
have
were really
like
pushing the
records
native
or
issues,
access to the history of
culture
their
and stuff like that.
families.
So the Trail of Broken Treaties, that was 1972. Explain what it is.
So it may be her
We knew that we had to get to
like taking up
get the government
identity
to
that may not
treaties,
be
'cause they never
completely
honored our
accurate,
treaties.
but she didn't
only way we
know,
could do
wasn't
this
aware of
is
what
to, go right
tribes
straight
she
to
actually
Washington.
came
so
from.
We organized a group we called it the Trail of Broken Treaties, and we all organized from all over the country. They sent representatives in old cars. Nobody had new cars in them days, and we all went to Washington.
You went?
Of course I did. Of course I was there too. Yeah.
This is, of course, a takeoff on the Trail of Tears, and most people in our schools, and maybe less so, especially now, will ever
Yeah, that's
know
something
what
in
the Trail of
history
Tears
that doesn't
was.
get covered a lot.
precisely.
Surprise,
That was all
surprise, is
past,
how,
everything we did was we called it
marginalized
like the
people
Trail of
fighting
Broken
for each
Treaties.
other's
That was
rights,
done on the
but
Trail of
especially
Tears and,
indigenous and
Long
black
Walk,
people,
all the other,
especially queer people and
events
women,
like
these
that happened. It wasn't just the
intersections
Trail of
being at the
Tears. That's what people have
forefront
to understand.
of
It was- the Trail of
these
Tears was
civil
just one
rights
of them that
movements.
became so well known because I think 10,000 people died on that, and just they're laying alongside the trails and stuff from dying from sickness, malnutrition, all that stuff on the Trail of Tears. That's why.
This was under President Andrew Jackson?
Yes, yes.
The president who President Trump
was
revered.
order, yeah. He was he was a hater, and so we every event we organized.
He was a hater. Yeah, he certainly was. It's just like a funny way of putting that. Oh, whoops.
Continue to be done.
Excuse me.
We still find it's still happening today.
Sorry about that.
There had made a public statement that about Native people that we didn't kill enough of them Indians. That's a very dangerous thing to say about anybody, because there's a bunch of nuts out there, like
Sorry, let me. I'm embarrassed because of some of the things I was showing. Let's see. I have so many fucking tabs open. Where is this?
Yeah. So 52 years ago. The start of the American Indian movement, 71-day occupation of the village of Wounded Knee on Pine Ridge Reservation.
There we go.
Occupation helping draw international attention to the plight.
I'm like kind of shy. There was like some of my like editing for like my choreography that I have been doing. Unc said haters gonna hate. Yeah, exactly.
Of Native Americans, the U.S. government responding to the occupation with a
So,
full military
marginalized
siege
people
that included
understanding
armored personnel carriers, F-4
the global
Phantom jets,
nature
US
of
Marshals,
oppression
FBI, state and local enforcement
and the
during the
need for
occupation.
collective
2
liberation.
Sioux men shot dead by federal
Like I'm
agents, and a
talking
black
about
civil rights
Palestine.
activist, Ray Robinson, went missing. The FBI confirmed in 2014, decades later, that Ray Robinson had been killed during the standoff. Most people don't know about this history.
No.
Maybe they've heard the book, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. So can you talk about Pine Ridge and Wounded Knee, especially for young people who don't know
I
the
was in
history?
jail during the beginning of Wounded Knee, but I got out, it was about halfway through. Then I went up there and I helped pack in stuff into Wounded Knee, and I stayed out there on the outside forces. After we made all those trips to Washington and all stuff, all those other demonstrations and all those promises, they were going to do this and do that. They were going to investigate everything, all of our accusations and all that stuff. And we soon found out, we knew anyway, but we soon found out that it was all a lie. They weren't going to investigate, and they didn't. And so finally the elders and the chiefs made the decision to go to Wounded Knee. AIM had no part in that decision. We cannot go any place in Indian country and make policies. We can't. That is not us. We can't do that. Now, and we can't go unless we're invited by those people. They just got fed up with so many more false promises and what was happening. They were being terrorized by a group organized by a mercenary group, I might add. They were provided with intelligence, armored personnel, ammunition, sophisticated weapons,
funded by the government, probably.
And the leader made that admitted that
ballet
on the national
a little bit. It's more like burlesque.
They tried to deny it at first, but they called themselves guardians of the Oglala Nation.
Sensual. Scene
Dick Wilson.
That I'm going to release on Friday. So you can look forward to that.
What's going on down there. And
I'm a little bit shy. I haven't done something like this in a very long time.
Communists and Marxists, and we were being financed by the communists. They were to go out there and wipe us out. When Nixon got the 82nd Airborne,
this
82nd
argument of saying like, oh, you're like, even if there were communists and Marxists, like, who the fuck cares? That doesn't justify genocide and violence.
And it took us 10 years.
But
we got
that
all this
has been a continual...
Out of the files that they had to turn over to us, right?
A continual basis by governments, especially fascist, colonizing governments, to oppress people.
Different sophisticated weaponry, armored personnel carriers, and finances and surveillance and stuff like that. So that was all illegal, and that's how we found out a lot of stuff about what they were doing there, and it was all illegal. If it would have been left to Nixon, he was going to wipe us out, but. He didn't, because we heard his wife step forward and said, no, don't you do that.
Now, still going back 50 years, what landed you in jail? I want to go to the words in Democracy Now! In 2003, the occupation of Wounded Knee is considered the beginning of what Oglala people referred to as the reign of terror from 73 to 76.
She probably should have done that in other ways with Nixon.
Went uninvestigated by the FBI, which had jurisdiction. The period culminating in the June 26 shootout, for which Leonard Peltier was
meaning the wife of a president.
First of all, I don't know who the shooter is.
Melania is notably silent on all of her husband's genocidal violence.
So I'm not going to tell you anything in that area. But
in rhetoric.
I'll speak on the other issues, because it's public knowledge, and it's been our attempts to continue to expose that stuff. But there were a lot of Native people, traditionalists, whose homes were burned, whose houses was drive-by shootings. People were pulled over and beaten, and some shot, some killed. And those things are literally recordings on this. We got records of all this stuff now. So people can't deny this stuff. The only ones that are denying this is the United States government, the FBI, and people like that. But
hello.
We faced
surprise.
A time called the Reign of Terror, when they were getting away with all this. None of them were going to investigate them. A lot of the older people that seen these people identified them, but the FBI still wouldn't investigate. They were able to kill people at random. They were and getting away with it because they had no fear of being prosecuted. The only fear they had was of us, the American Indian movement, because we wouldn't take their every chance we got together. We got a confrontation with them, and that's the only.
Because when people are fighting to protect
any arrest or anything else,
their loved ones and themselves,
conversation with Indigenous leader Leonard Peltier, released a home confinement.
People
in
have
February.
a much greater reason to be fighting for something than oppression. The oppressors will always lose when we have something greater to fight for. That they can only oppress us for so long before people rise up and resist.
For nearly half a century behind bars. I asked him about his claims that his extradition from Canada and trial in the United States were marked by prosecutorial misconduct.
Talk about the coerced testimony of Myrtle Poorbear, who she is.
Who is she?
I know you didn't know her at the time.
Well, I never knew her. Her father was going to come testify at my trial that she had a serious mental problem. And her sister was going to testify that on the day of the shootout, they were sitting there drinking beer, and we got this all on tape. And they were sitting there drinking beer, and they ran out of beer. And they were watching TV, she said, and they decided to make a run off the reservation because it was a dry reservation. No alcohol was allowed there. And so to go and buy some more beer, come back and watch some more TV. And they started driving down the road, and all of a sudden a bulletin came over the radio. Big shootout in Ogallala between marshals, FBI, BIA cops, goon squads against the American Indian movement. So they were over 50 miles away. Finally, Myrtle admitted that she didn't know me. And,
but her testimony said
her testimony in the grand jury is when he got us all indicted.
Said she was your girlfriend and she had seen.
She witnessed. Oh God.
Seen all of that.
This was when the lawyers came to me in Canada. They said.
Yeah, false witnesses.
Leonard, they said, Leonard.
Classic tactic.
Bad news for you.
By the government.
Said, yeah. What kind of bad news? And they said, your girlfriend's testifying against you. And I looked at him and I said, my girlfriend? What do you mean, my girlfriend? He said, your girlfriend. And I said, I don't have a girlfriend. I got a wife, 2 kids.
So talk about James Reynolds, the former U.S. attorney in charge of the prosecution that helped convict you. He later becomes an advocate for your release, stating the prosecution could not prove that you had committed any offense and the conviction was unjust. He wrote to president after president. He himself was appointed by Carter right through to Biden.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, about 10 years ago, James Reynolds started to have a change of heart, I guess. James Reynolds said that there is no evidence Leonard Peltier committed any crimes on that reservation. And he was in charge of everything.
What this ultimately leads to is your imprisonment for 49 years.
Yep.
The majority of your life behind bars, what this institutionalization meant for you, what it meant to be both a prisoner and considered a political prisoner around the world and a symbol of the fight for Native American rights and what happens to you when you engage in it. All of those things.
Well, okay, I think I've been asked this question quite a bit, and it's hard for me to answer, but I think what really kept me strong was my anger. I was extremely angry about what they did to me and my people. And I'm still very, very angry. And there was no way in hell I was going to get justice. I could have had at least 14 constitutional issues that I should have been released on, at least that many. And I knew I wasn't going to get it. I knew the courts were not going to give it to me. And I mean, even the Supreme Court wouldn't refuse to hear my case and stuff like that. Well, I knew why. You know, I found evidence of them meeting with Judge Haney. And Judge Haney became a strong advocate for my release. But we found evidence. He worked with the FBI. And I felt so much hate and anger.
Yeah.
And what they did to Native people in this country, this continent. And that kept me strong. It kept me from, I've been offered numerous times, a few times anyway, that if I accepted responsibility and made statements that everything we've said negative about the United States government, what their past history was and their dealings with us as people in the nation, and they would turn me loose. And I refused to do that. I refused to bow down to them, and I still refuse to bow down to them. I'm going to die with my beliefs. And I just refuse to. To me, it's treason against my nation, my people.
You're a major symbol of Indigenous power, not only in the United States, but around the world.
Yeah, worldwide.
What does that mean to you?
Well, I hope I can use it to benefit my people. I mean, as I said earlier, we're still in danger. It's not over for us. We don't get to live like the rest of the people in this country, and free, without fear of what would happen to us if we had our treaties taken away from us. We don't get to live like that.
Secretive elites really protect their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The system
our identity, losing
is
our culture,
this cold, hard machine.
Most Americans don't have to worry about that. We do. And
we have humanity and empathy on our side, which is something much greater to fight for.
I have not surrendered. I don't want to go back to prison. I heard that Trump was going to try to take away all the...
we definitely see what class solidarity looks like among them.
What would you say to young Indigenous people? I'm looking behind you at a photograph of... Is it a picture of your great-granddaughter?
Yeah, this one right here.
And she's wearing a T-shirt that says strong. How old is she?
She's now 11. We adopted her when she was a little baby. Been taking care of her ever since. And she loves me and thinks I'm the greatest thing in the world. I love her because she is the greatest singer in the world. And she's a now champion fly swimmer. She was going to, her plan was if she wins the Olympics, she was going to take those Olympics and say, this is for my grandpa, Leonard Peltier, who they illegally put in prison. This is for him.
Yes.
I said, where do you come up with that? She won't say that. She just looks at me. Yeah.
You know, we've been covering the climate movement for so
Where'd
many
you come
years.
up with
We're
that?
here
She's like,
in North Dakota, covering the standoff at Standing Rock of the
life?
Sioux-led, Indigenous-led global
living this
to
life.
the environment. And this year, the UN Climate Summit is in just the tip of the rainforest, Belém, in Brazil. And each of these UN climate summits, we see Indigenous people, especially young Indigenous people, there fighting for the planet. Do you see the voice of Indigenous people on the climate movement as hopeful?
We've been talking about this for 250 years.
Yeah.
You know, since America was first organized, when we pray and when we whatever we do,
Indigenous
we
rights cannot be separated from environmental rights.
We never will stop.
And sovereignty rights.
We are still strong environmentalists.
Well, Leonard Peltier, I want to say thank you so much for inviting us into your home. I'm so glad we're not coming to a prison.
Well, so am I.
Indigenous leader Leonard Peltier speaking in September at his home on the Turtle Mountain Reservation in North Dakota on his 81st birthday weekend. Thanks for watching Democracy Now!
I need to find that. I didn't know about that. This was very illuminating to me. The videos or the elites protecting themselves? Okay. So let's get into Banned Book Club. Elites. Yeah. It explains so many things. Okay. I'm going to pull this out. A polyglot YouTuber I was fond of was killed. Oh my god. Entire hospital records forged, even pictures. The people who are dismissive of like government interference, where they immediately say that it's a conspiracy, it's like, yeah, it's a conspiracy for covering up their crimes. Jesus. That is so sad. Yeah, and we wonder, like, as we're talking about, you know, like political prisoners and all of these trumped up charges and false evidence, like with Epstein, like there are some people who are like, yeah, he's not alive. Like, look at the post-mortem pictures. And it's like, I watched a mortician react to the photos of his autopsy, and she was like, this does not look like a dead person. I know what dead people look like. So I would not be surprised if he is still alive somewhere, of like with the resources and like the global protection that he has gotten in the past. Yeah. The elite really have the desire and resources to continue with their crimes. Who is the YouTuber, out of curiosity? Oh, that's so sad. Okay. So, moving to Banned Book Club. It's the last day, which, by the way, we are needing to pick another book. So there is a tie between 1984 by George Orwell and The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I don't know if there is a preference. If you have a preference, Tan. 5 years ago. R.I.P. I even funded his cause from his courses. What? And fiends are in the world, yeah. Lao Shu. Moses McCormick. I'm gonna have to look him up. Thank you for telling me about him. Yeah. There really is no end to the ruling class's greed and cruelty. He lives on through his younger brother and his twin daughters. Aww. Yeah, keeping his memory alive. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look him up. Thank you for telling me about that. Okay. So with this last section of reading for The Giver, Jonas and Gabriel are still traveling. They're still escaping. And he is extremely tired because he has been traveling for a very long time. They are very hungry and desperate. But he also was able to see the diversity of life, this openness to the outside world. What options? 1984 by George Orwell and The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. There's currently a tie between those, at least on the YouTube poll. I don't know if you'd have a preference. Okay, this is a little excerpt as he's seeing new things. Gabriel, the baby, the little toddler, it was saying plane. And Jonas, this little excerpt says, terrified, he looked up, but it was not a plane at all. Though he had never seen one before, he identified it from his fading memories, for the giver had given them to him often. It was a bird. And then they saw more birds, different kinds of birds. All of it was new to him. After a life of sameness and predictability, he was awed by the surprises that lay beyond each curve of the road. He slowed the bike again and again to look with wonder at wild flowers, to enjoy the throaty warble of a new bird nearby, or merely to watch the way wind shifted the leaves in the trees. During his 12 years in the community, he had never felt such simple moments of exquisite happiness. But there were desperate fears building in him now as well. The most relentless of his new fears was that they would starve. Yeah, that's a big fear. So seeing the highs and lows of having individuality and more autonomy. So he again, they're trying to survive based off of memories when they can't find food, of like feeling full and remembering meals. And now Gabriel is crying and weak because Jonas is also weak. And they're going hungry. And it said Jonas, he wept because he was afraid now that he could not save Gabriel. He no longer cared about himself. That this empathy in wanting to protect people, that was developed of this element of self-sacrifice that was not allowed in the community. Then they get to the destination. He keeps remembering like good moments, his friends, to keep him going. And then this is where he sees lights ahead. Downward, downward, faster and faster. Suddenly he was aware with certainty and joy that below, ahead, they were waiting for him, that they were waiting too for the baby, the people in the memory of like Christmas. For the first time, he heard something that he knew to be music. He heard people singing. Behind him, across vast distances of space and time from the place he had left, he thought he heard music too, but perhaps it was only an echo. And that's the end. Where it seems to be like it's Christmas time. It's a much more not as like colonized version of Christianity that's portrayed in the book. We do have Jonas as kind of like this Christ figure, and now that he has left, the rest of the community actually were able to receive memories. So we see how one person's quest for individuality, the development of empathy, and honoring collective memory, actual history, that it encourages communities to be connected and to build. Okay, so I will read the questions that I sent to Lois Lowry, and here are her answers. Excuse me. What similarities and differences do you see between the giver and society today? Similarities. Primarily the rejection of individuality and of diversity, the lack of citizen participation in government, the suppression of the arts. Differences. Today's citizens are expressing their mistrust and unhappiness. That is something that I found to be very comforting, is that even in this fascist moment, it feels like the walls are closing in, especially in the US, but, you know, many other places in the world, especially the ones who are on the receiving end of US imperialist violence, that we still haven't gotten to the point where everyone is compliant, or complying, that people are still speaking out. We see a crackdown on free speech, political prisoners, but that the existence of people speaking out is something that we should hold on to. Second question. You've mentioned being against censorship. How do you feel about The Giver being banned over the years? In your opinion, why has it been banned? Lois's answer. It always takes me by surprise. Why has it been challenged or banned? I think because those who believe in the banning of books are troubled by the portrayal in The Giver of a young person exposing the hypocrisy in an authoritarian government. Yeah. Third question. In your own words, what do freedom of speech and intellectual freedom mean to you? Her answer. Those phrases are the very basis of a free and democratic society. Fourth question. The novel touches on eugenics. What is the danger in valuing certain attributes in lives over others? Okay, so leading the witness, Your Honor. This was a leading question. It's better to do like open-ended questions with an interview. She said, there is a great danger in placing a value on characteristics that purport to enhance the value of one subset of humans over another. Question 5. How does cultural memory serve the individual and society at large? Her answer. As Santayana once said, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Question 6. Why are pain and suffering integral to the human experience? Her answer. One cannot truly experience an emotion without being aware of its opposite. Question 7. What do you hope people take away from the novel? Her answer. An awareness of the importance of education and of participation in our government. Question 8. In your opinion, what role should art play in society? What role should artists play? Her answer. Art and artists should incite curiosity and emotions. Question 9. To you, what is the importance of addressing difficult topics in art? And her answer, difficult topics in any form incite thought. Question 10. How do you organize your books? This is something I like to ask authors because like we can ask their thoughts about a lot of things, but it gives like an insight into like how their mind works. She says, my books are organized by genre, fiction, nonfiction, biography, poetry, etc., and within each genre alphabetically. I love that. I asked Fran Lebowitz when I went to see her speak, and I had her sign my Fran Lebowitz reader book. I asked how she organizes her books, and she said that she divides them between fiction and nonfiction, and then alphabetizes them. Question 11. What literature has been formative for you as a writer? Her answer, Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. That was something I wasn't expecting, and I love that. The Yearling by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Excellent book. Question 12. Which works do you think everyone should read? And her answer, The Collected Letters of E.B. White, which I read in college. They are very good. And The Gettysburg Address. That was something I wasn't expecting. Question 13. How do you overcome writer's block? Her answer, I don't believe in writer's block. It only means I don't feel like working today. Dentists and truck drivers experience the same thing. Also, a really great answer. Question 14. What is your opinion of the phrase, the pen is mightier than the sword? Her answer, it's a clever little metaphor, and I certainly hope that it's true. Question 15. What advice do you have for aspiring writers? Her answer, keep in mind that writing is an art. That's in all caps, art. Publishing is a business, all caps business. Concentrate on writing and forget everything else. Those are her answers. One of my literary heroes. I was shocked that she even responded to my cheeky request. So, there you go. There are her responses. I did do like a follow-up email and was just like, how are you doing in this fascist moment? And she's 89, or she just turned 89 and is like, well, I am hopeful to see the end of this, but I don't know if I will, and that's like a very sobering fact, especially with her writing inspiring so many people growing up understanding that like resistance can be a beneficial thing. I know, I thought that was so cool. I also can be like self-sabotaging sometimes. Like one of her emails I didn't respond to for a while because I was like, what do I say? And like freaking out a little bit. And I was like, oh no, does that mean that I like looked disinterested? But there you go. Like, we are lucky to have her art, and I was very lucky to even have her interest in responding. Hi, Bug. Hi. Welcome. Okay, so getting into the Scarlet Pimpernel, we read in the last chapter that Sir Percy was leaving because he's going to do some business with Armand to help save him, who is Marguerite's brother. Okay, this is chapter 18, called The Mysterious Device. The day was well advanced when Marguerite woke, refreshed by her long sleep. Louise had brought her some fresh milk and a dish of fruit, and she partook of this frugal breakfast with hearty appetite. Louise is the name of a servant. Thoughts crowded thick and fast in her mind as she munched her grapes. Most of them went galloping away after the tall, erect figure of her husband. Erect, you say? Okay, I'll stop. Whom she had watched riding out of sight more than 5 hours ago. In answer to her eager inquiries, Louise brought back the news that the groom had come home with Sultan, that was Sir Percy's horse, having left Sir Percy in London. The groom thought that his master was about to get on board his schooner, which was lying off just below London Bridge. So all of this ruling class money and free time for him to engage in these activities. Sir Percy had ridden thus far, had then met Briggs, the skipper of the Daydream, the name of the schooner, and had sent the groom back to Richmond with Sultan and the empty saddle. This news puzzled Marguerite more than ever. Where could Sir Percy be going just now in the Daydream? On Armand's behalf, he had said. Well, Sir Percy had influential friends everywhere. Perhaps he was going to Greenwich, or ... But Marguerite ceased to conjecture. All would be explained anon. He said that he would come back, and that he would remember. A long, idle day lay before Marguerite. Yeah, because you don't have to work for money. Anymore, at least. She used to. She was expecting the visit of her old schoolfellow, the little Suzanne de Tournay. With all the merry mischief at her command, she had tendered her request for Suzanne's company to the Comtesse in the presence of the Prince of Wales last night. She's being manipulative. His Royal Highness had loudly applauded the notion and declared that he would give himself the pleasure of calling on the two ladies in the course of the afternoon. The Comtesse had not dared to refuse, and then and there was entrapped in a promise to send little Suzanne to spend a long and happy day at Richmond with her friend. Yeah, using the concept of class against her. Marguerite expected her eagerly. She longed for a chat about old school days with the child. She felt that she would prefer Suzanne's company to that of anyone else. Yeah, than, like, the working class, the people who work for you. And together they would roam through the fine old garden and rich deer park, or stroll along the river. But Suzanne had not yet come, and Marguerite, being dressed, prepared to go downstairs. She looked quite a girl this morning in her simple muslin frock, with a broad blue sash round her slim waist, and the dainty crossover fichu into which, at her bosom, she had fastened a few late crimson roses. So again, like this constant comparing her to a child, it's very infantilizing, giving into this patriarchal perspective of women. What are you up to, bug? She's just wandering. She crossed the landing outside her own suite of apartments and stood still for a moment at the head of the fine oak staircase, which led to the lower floor. On her left were her husband's apartments, a suite of rooms which she practically never entered. They consisted of bedroom, dressing, and reception room, and at the extreme end of the landing, a small study, which, when Sir Percy did not use it, was always kept locked. His own special and confidential valet, Frank, had charge of this room. Oh, we're actually getting more names of the servants. This is surprising. No one was ever allowed to go inside. My lady had never cared to do so, and the other servants had, of course, not dared to break this hard and fast rule. Because they're so obedient. Marguerite had often, with that good-natured contempt which she had recently adopted towards her husband, chaffed him about this secrecy which surrounded his private study. Laughingly, she had always declared that he strictly eluded all prying eyes from his sanctum, for fear that they should detect how very little study went on within its four walls. A comfortable armchair for Sir Percy's sweet slumbers was, no doubt, its most conspicuous piece of furniture. Marguerite thought of all of this on this bright October morning as she glanced along the corridor. Frank was evidently busy with his master's rooms, for most of the doors stood open, that of the study amongst the others. Oh, she's gonna spy. A sudden, burning, childish curiosity seized her to have a peep at Sir Percy's sanctum. This restriction, of course, did not apply to her, and Frank would, of course, not dare to oppose her. Still, she hoped that the valet would be busy in one of the other rooms, that she might have that one quick peep in secret and unmolested. Gently, on tiptoe, she crossed the landing, and, like Bluebeard's wife, trembling, half with excitement and wonder, she paused a moment on the threshold, strangely perturbed and irresolute. The door was ajar, and she could not see anything within. She pushed it open tentatively. There was no sound. Frank was evidently not there, and she walked boldly in. At once she was struck by the severe simplicity of everything around her. The dark and heavy hangings, the mass of oak furniture, the one or two maps on the wall, in no way recalled to her mind the lazy man about town, the lover of race courses, the dandified leader of fashion, that was the outward representation of Sir Percy Blakeney. There was no sign here, at any rate, of hurried departure. Everything was in its place. Not a scrap of paper littered the floor. Not a cupboard or drawer was left open. The curtains were drawn aside, and through the open window, the fresh morning air was streaming in. Facing the window, and well into the center of the room, stood a ponderous, business-like desk, which looked as if it had seen much service. On the wall to the left of the desk, reaching almost from floor to ceiling, was a large, full-length portrait of a woman, magnificently framed, exquisitely painted, and signed with the name of Boucher. It was Percy's mother. Marguerite knew very little about her, except that she had died abroad, ailing in body as well as in mind, which Percy was still a lad. I'm guessing when Percy was still a lad. She must have been a very beautiful woman once, when Boucher painted her, and as Marguerite looked at the portrait, she could not be struck by the extraordinary resemblance which must have existed between mother and son. There was the same low, square forehead, crowned with thick, fair hair, smooth and heavy, the same deep-set, somewhat lazy blue eyes beneath firmly marked, straight brows, and in those eyes there was the same intensity behind that apparent laziness, the same latent passion which used to light up Percy's face in the olden days before his marriage, and which Marguerite had again noted, last night at dawn when she had come quite close to him, and had allowed a note of tenderness to creep into her voice. Marguerite studied the portrait, for it interested her. After that she turned and looked again at the ponderous desk. It was covered with a mass of papers, all neatly tied and docketed, which looked like accounts and receipts, arrayed with perfect method. It had never before struck Marguerite, nor had she, alas, found it worthwhile to inquire, as to how Sir Percy, whom all the world had credited with a total lack of brains, administered the vast fortune which his father had left him. Since she had, from colonial extraction and generational wealth, since she had entered this neat, orderly room, she had been taken so much by surprise that this obvious proof of her husband's strong business capacities did not cause her more than a passing thought of wonder, but it also strengthened in her the now certain knowledge that, with his worldly inanities, his foppish ways, same, and foolish talk, he was not only wearing a mask, but was playing a deliberate and studied part. Marguerite wondered again. Why should he take all this trouble? Why should he, who was obviously a serious, earnest man, wish to appear before his fellow men as an empty-headed nincompoop? He may have wished to hide his love for a wife who held him in contempt, but surely such an object could have been gained at less sacrifice and with far less trouble than constant, incessant acting of an unnatural part. She looked round her quite aimlessly now. She was horribly puzzled, and a nameless dread, before all this strange, unaccountable mystery, had begun to seize upon her. She felt cold and uncomfortable suddenly in this severe and dark room. There were no pictures on the wall save the fine Boucher portrait, only a couple of maps, both of parts of France, one of the north coast, and the other of the environs of Paris. What did Sir Percy want with those, she wondered. What indeed? Her head began to ache. She turned away from this strange Bluebeard's chamber which she had entered, and which she did not understand. She did not wish Frank to find her here, and with a last look round, she once more turned to the door. As she did so, her foot knocked against a small object which had apparently been lying close to the desk on the carpet, and which now went rolling right across the room. She stooped to pick it up. It was a solid gold ring, with a flat shield on which was engraved a small device. Marguerite turned it over in her fingers, and then studied the engraving on the shield. It represented a small, star-shaped flower, of a shape she had seen so distinctly twice before, once at the opera, and once at Lord Grenville's ball. Oh, so Sir Percy has this ring that has the marker of the Scarlet Pimpernel. What could that mean? Okay, that's another short chapter. But tomorrow, we're gonna continue talking about more Indigenous resistance, and also go over pro-social relationships, the article that you sent, Tan, that I want to look at, and how like consistent, empathetic, compassionate relationships that are not on again, off again, not just romantic ones, but how that not only helps with like personal health, but how that also helps to build community. So, okay, that's it for me today. Thank you for being here. It was good to chat with you. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.